Aardvark is a tool I built in 2005. It was very popular. I eventually sold it to Google, partly for the trademark, but in any case, I eventually did make some money off it. But it's a very powerful tool, and I'm going to show a little bit how it works here. You can just use it in its original website, just in demo mode, but you mouse over elements, and it highlights them in color, and you can enter any of these keystrokes here. For instance, Q to quit Aardvark, and it will do useful things. Let me show it to you on CNN. Here I'm using it just as a bookmarklet. You see it says press H key for help. So I'm going to press H to get a little box that shows me what the keystrokes are. I can get rid of those, but W is probably the most common one, and R. W for wider, R for remove, and I for isolate are the ones you really want to see. So let's say I come over here and I want to go wider. I just hit W. I'm hitting W repeatedly. And it's just going wider in the sense of getting the parent element, the containing element. And I can, for instance, I can delete. I can grab any element I want and just get rid of it. This is very handy if you want to print the page. I'll show a little bit more of that, but let's look at some of the things I can do. I can grab that right there and I can isolate it. Let's see what happens. That was just left that on the page. Really nice if that's all I wanted to print. Then I can say, I don't want this junk here. And I can undo simply by hitting U and go back where I came from. And it works on most sites. Some sites don't allow bookmarklets anymore, but let's go to another one here. Here's one where it actually talks about Aardvark. It's 7 must-have Firefox extensions, and it mentions Aardvark there. Now let's say I want to print this, and I would hit Aardvark, and of course I can get rid of individual elements, remove, but the better way is just to grab the stuff I want. Let's just get this and say I for isolate, and there it is. And some things might get a little messed up here. It did some kind of funny things in the way it flowed the page, but you know, if I want to print this out and make it look like Aardvark's in first place, I can. It's very easy. Not that I would want to deceive anyone. But I can come down here and grab this and just delete, etc. And when I print this, it will print without those things and save me some ink and make it look like I want it to look. And then just hit Q to quit. Now I'm going to, let's show some of the more advanced things it can do. Here I'm in Craigslist. I'm going to just use a simple site. Like Craigslist is kind of simple HTML, just a bunch of tables and, you know, I guess they're ULs and LIs and such. But I'm going to show that I can, let's say I pick this right here, and I can hit V for view source. Now it shows me the source code, the HTML source code of those elements in there. And of course it's kind of prettied up in a way that makes it very easy to look at it. And that's handy enough. Another thing I can do is, and this gets really interesting for development, and I use this extensively. Let's grab this calendar here. Oops, go N for narrower after I went W for wider. And now I'm going to hit J. J gives me JavaScript. This actual JavaScript uses my what I call a DOM generator library. It's a very, very simple, just about 2K worth of code library that allows me to, you call a function called table and it makes a table element. Call a function called tbody and it makes a tbody element. And you notice this looks kind of like HTML. It's organized hierarchically. This TD returns an element into this, and this TR, therefore, you know, you can just nest them like this, and it looks very HTML-like. But it's actually JavaScript code to make these. Now, obviously, the real power of that is when you don't just copy the code, but you put it into loops and do logic and stuff. But let's go ahead and just put it in a code pen here, just to show that here I can create these. And let's say I just add document body append child, and then jump to the end and add a parenthesis, and there it is. It added a calendar here to the body of the document. Now, if I actually want that to look like, I'm going to grab some, it's very easy to get the CSS. I'm just going to paste the CSS from Craigslist. Now it looks more like Craigslist. But the power of this, of course, is that I can, you can do a loop where you call the function th and put in the days of the week and whatever you want to do. But to be able to start with something that you've, say, mocked up in HTML and just pull out the structure of it into something like this, and then just start building DOM elements in a very, very powerful and readable way. Very powerful. Let me show you just a couple more tools that Aardvark does. Now I have an additional thing called my Snippet Editor, which allows me to edit JavaScript here in I have tons of little snippets that just do all kinds of things that are handy to me. This is also a bookmarklet, and it interacts with Aardvark in various ways. Here's a really powerful one. Now, just to show you, this is JavaScript. Here I have, you can put strings in here and they will be referred to as a variable, g.elempath. G is a global, it'll create that variable. And let me just open this up, and I'm going to do Aardvark, and I'm first going to say G for global. See, it created global element elem1. Quit Aardvark. elem1.style.background color equals, let's make it red, and I think I got an extra dot in there, and see what happens. Okay, I just set the background color of my element. So that's one way Aardvark can interact. But if you really want to go nuts with it, one of the cool things you can do is, let's say I pick this element right here, and I can say X. And X is, you'll see it here, XPath. It added to Aardvark, or I'm sorry, to the snippet editor, an XPath right here. It's saying that that element that I was on is the first body element, the first div element within that, the first section element within that, the third div element within that, the second UL element, so on, down to that element. And I can get that element. If I hit this, it found that element and just showed me the text. It also, you might have seen it highlighted that element in color. But here's where, just to get a little bit more carried away, let's get rid of that XPath. I can get rid of this whole thing here, and it'll add that back. I'm going to get Aardvark, and I'm going to grab two of these. I'm going to grab one of these elements, say X, put the XPath, grab another one, X, put two XPaths, and you notice these are almost identical except they differ down here. What it's going to do is, where they differ, it's going to treat that as a wildcard, and watch what happens. See, it's highlighting these in color, and it's picking out the text. Now, the colors, it did that intentionally slowly in a timer function so I could see it, but it grabbed all the text from those. This is really powerful, and I can show you, I'm not going to show really all the details, but here's a really powerful use of these where I have multiple paths that, and these scrape data from my bank account because there's no API to my bank account, and I want it to be able to do that, and it's pretty handy. So I use a combination of the Snippet Editor and Aardvark to do that. I use this kind of tool extensively, both in development of apps and just for my own purposes when I want to get data off a website or do something interesting on a website, and so on. So that's about all. The only other thing I want to show with Aardvark is you will see that, for instance, here's somewhere crediting Aardvark as being the, you say it's an excellent extension, and it was the inspiration for Firebug's inspector. So the actual Firebug, and which was followed up by Chrome DevTools, and the way you can inspect elements was actually inspired by Aardvark. Aardvark was developed in 2005, so it's been around longer than any of those things. But I still use it extensively. I don't know how many other people do, but for a while there were, I think, a few million people using it. But together with its snippet editor, which is mostly just used by me these days, I think, very powerful tools, and just one of many things that I enjoy hacking JavaScript in kind of unconventional ways. Thanks for watching.